Chapter 6, the sales and purchase of labor power. Change in value of money, which has to be transformed into capital, cannot take place in the money itself, since it is function and means of purchase and payment. It does not no more than realize the price of commodity in buying or pay. For while when it sticks its own particular form, it also messes up the value of constant magnitude. Just as little can it change originally in the second act of circulation or resale the commodity, for its act merely convert the commodity from its natural form back into the money form. The change must therefore take place MC, but not in the value for which are being exchanged, and the commodity and pay for at its full value. The change can therefore ordinarily only in an actual use value of the commodity and the consumption. In order to extract the value out of the consumption of commodity, our friends, the money owners, must be lucky enough to find within the spare or circulation on the market a commodity whose use value process the particular, therefore itself the objectification of labor, hence of creating a value. The processor of money does find such a special commodity on the market, the capital for the labor, in other words, labor power. We mean by labor power is a labor capacity of those mental and physical capabilities exit in the physical form and living personality of a human being, which he set in motion whatever the product of use value of any kind. But in order that the owners of the money may find a labor power on the market as a common commodity, various conditions must first be fulfilled. In and for itself, the exchange of commodities imply no other relation of dependence than those which result from its own nation. On these assumptions, labor powers can appear on the market as a commodity only if so far as a professor is indivisible whose labor power is, offer it for sale or sell it as a commodity. In order that the professor may sell it as a commodity, he must have his position. He must be free of his own labor capability, hence of the person. He and the owns of money meet in the market and enter into his relationship with each other on footing equally as own as commodities, which is so the difference that one in the buyer, the other sell. Both are therefore equal in the eyes of the law. For this relation to continue, the labor power must always sell it for a limited period only. If he were to sell it as a lump once and for all, would be selling himself, converting himself from a free commodity. He must constantly treat the labor power as his own property, his own commodity, and he can do this and only by placing it as a disposer of the buyer, handing it all over to the buyer for a way to manage both to his labor power and to avoid renouncing his rights of ownership over it. The second initial condition which allows the owner of the money to find a labor power in the market as a commodity, in this that the professor of the labor power instant of being able to sell commodities in which his labors have been objectified must rather be compelled to offer for sale as a commodity that very labor power which exit only in his living body. In order that a man may be able to sell commodities other than the labor power, he must course pose meaning of production, such as raw material, instruments of labor, etc. No boots can be made without leather. He requires also the means of sustenance, no body. Not even practitioners can live in the product of the future or on use value, whose production has not yet been completed. Just as on the first day of his appearance on the world stage, man must still consume every day, before and while he produce. And a product or products as a commodity, they must be sold after they had been produced. And they can only satisfy the producer's needs as they have been sold. The time necessary for sale must be counted as well as the time of production. For the transformation of money into capital, therefore, the owner of the money must find free work available on a commodity market, and his worker must be free in a double sense. That as a free individual, he can dispose of his labor power as his own commodities, and that on the other hand, he has no other commodities for sale of them, and are free of all the object needs for realization in his labor power.